This is one of my favorite stories, and it's kind of like...
It's not real.
No. I feel it's loosely based on a story with a little bit of like spin and flair. I heard it somewhere, and then I added a little bit to it, but I call it Three Kings in a Trench.
I'm cool.
I said Three Kings.
That's four.
It's three. Pull your thumb in. What you doing? So Three Kings in a Trench, right? So the whole idea is like you got three kings, right? Three kingdoms that are nearby each other, and they have a common enemy. And they had this idea where they're like, hey, this group is a problem to us. Let's join forces. Let's go beat them. Like, once we eliminate them, we can go and kind of exist how we want to do it, whatever. So all the kings were like, yeah, this is dope. Let's go do that. They join together. They send out their armies. They get waxed. I mean, straight up waxed. Like falling over, like all kind of... Anyways, so then they're like, the kings are like, this didn't go as planned. So let's all right, let's go talk to this prophet who talks to God all the time. They're like, hey, go ask your God we need a victory. Like, go ask God for a victory. And he was like, okay, like, I'll go talk to him. So he goes up wherever he goes to talk. So it could be right here. It could be whatever.
All right.
He goes and talks to him, and he's like, hey, God told me to tell you to dig a trench. And they were like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Weird, but we'll do it. So they start digging. And they dig a trench for a while, and then they come back to him. They're like, we're kind of confused. Like, why are we digging this trench? And basically the prophet was like, keep digging, the rain's coming. And they're like, all right, very cryptic of you, but all right, cool, we'll keep digging. Well, they dig this trench, and eventually the rain comes, and it fills up the trench. They were like, hey, it rained. The trench is filled up. What do we do? And he was like, all right, God said, go drink that water, replenish yourself, and go back and fight the battle. They were like, hold up. They're like, dude, we're talking like we wanted like smited with fire, like where's the lightning bolts like coming through? Like God, we thought God was going to handle this. What you mean God gave us water to drink? He's like, yeah, God wants you to drink the water and then go in and fight your battle. And so what's really interesting, I mean, sure, for the story's sake, they go and drink their water, they get replenished, they go beat their enemy, and they beat their common enemy, and they go and live happy lives. But just the whole idea of they were praying for a miracle, right? They were praying for something that they needed in their life. And it wasn't just like what people think of in terms of this passive pray to God, get something.
Or like it's a genie thing.
Yeah, like it's a genie in a bottle wishes type of thing. Like you overcome whatever because you just sat there. Like one, they were active, right? They were, I call it staying active while you're asking. They're digging this trench. One, they're like, yo, they don't know why. Like, why are we digging this trench? But in a lot of ways, they still kind of push through that. They did ask their questions, but we're human beings, right? We continue to ask.
Yeah.
But they're digging this trench. But then not only did they do what they were told, once the rain came and it filled it up, it was like, now you still go through and fight that battle that you needed to fight. And so it was like, oh, what? Like,
right.
We've still got to walk through, go through the uncomfortable, push ourselves through this thing to accomplish what we want, to receive what we want. So it's like, all right. So I told myself, after I heard that story and then kind of like altered it a little bit to myself, I kept reminding myself to keep digging. Just keep digging, keep digging. And some days I would dig and then it's weird. Maybe you were working towards a goal specifically, like in my life at that period, I was really asking for something. And I tried to remind myself, hey, to continue to stay active while you're asking for that.
Right.
It might have been maybe not the right thing to ask for, but I was asking for it and I was continuing to dig. And then there were some days where I felt like, man, I've been digging for days. Like, what am I even doing? But then there were some times where it was like, ooh, I felt a raindrop. Like, the rain's coming. Like, remind myself, the rain's coming. And, and it's funny, you dig a trench and maybe you're thinking, and now in that specific story, it was for something specific. But in my case of digging the trench, I was digging this trench preparing for something, and it didn't end up being what I was digging the trench for, but I still had that trench ready so when that rain came, I was able to be who I needed to be because I was replenished and stuff, So it might not always be directly towards what you're asking for, but I believe in asking. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it. I believe in putting out there what you want, what you desire in this life, but I don't believe in this passive sitting around asking for it. Like, you want something in your life. What are you doing? Practical things to get yourself there, right? Don't just sit there and pray about it.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
ask
that's
about
that
it.
whole concept of faith with without works is dead. Right.
Right.
Like
yeah.
even asking for something or having faith that something's coming, it's like, well, what are you doing to bring that about as well?
What are you doing to put yourself in that position? I mean, I talked a little bit about just in off-camera stuff about outliers.
All right.
And it talks about like not like for these people in history or for these moments in history where people seem to supersede life. Like it was like, whoa, these are like heroes of our time or whatever, or moguls, however you want to say it. It wasn't just because they were incredibly talented or whatever. It was the incredible opportunity that came with maybe the timing of what was happening in the world and things like that. But I think for the most part, it was their preparedness along the way.
Yeah.
Right. Being ready. So, hey, when that opportunity
when
does
the moment
hit,
comes,
right. When the moment comes,
right.
you've done what you needed to do to at least be ready to fight the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a metaphor. Maybe it's not always a fight, but you know what I mean? Like overcome that obstacle.
Hopeful for me, it's not necessarily a fight.
I don't need to, man.
It's not what I'm looking for. But no, I get that a lot. I mean, I think a lot in my life, I would want things to shake out a certain way, and I would ask for that, and then be mad if I didn't see it. And be honest, I would say most of the time I didn't see it how I saw it going in my mind for what I was asking it for. But also, like, looking back now, I got a lot of things I was asking for. I just didn't know I was necessarily asking for it. And I think that comes a lot with life, too. Like, we learn lessons and what mattered to us in certain stages. Like I'm a big proponent of life happens in seasons. It's one of my tattoos. Like each of my tattoos, I like read to myself, like remind myself.
You need to. They're permanently there.
They're permanent. They're there. But they're almost like my pillars of just like, hey, reminding me of battles won. And one of the ones that I tell myself is that life happens in seasons. Right now, I feel like I'm in a very much of a spring type season. Stuff is blooming, things are starting, things are happening. I was very much in a winter for a very long time in my life before what I feel now is a shift in seasons. But to know that like there's a purpose in this season, because that's another one of my tattoos, is like there's a purpose to the struggle. And there's a purpose to where we are right now and right here, regardless of if I see it or like understand it or anything. And I've told myself now too, like I'm no longer in the game of trying to understand why. Cause like, I don't know why I think deeply, but I think deeply. So I do that. So I'm going to go with that. I don't know why other people, like the way that humans interact with others and like the way that I see things in my own life and how I interact with others, those things matter to me on a level that so far in my life, I haven't found a ton of people that feel the same way about doing those types of things. But instead of me asking like, why am I like this? Why do I deal with this? Why am I going through this? It's like, no, it's just like, this is who I am. What is it that I want to do now as a result? What's next? And I saw something the other day when I was looking up a quote to send to a friend to just encourage them. It was just like, and I'm paraphrasing it, but like the strength is basically the strength for a person is in the vision on the horizon, not what's the next step.
Right, yeah.
Like the next step doesn't necessarily matter. Like the exact coordinates of like, oh, I did this on the path to this. Like that doesn't matter. But if I know, for me, like this stuff that I'm working on with DJJ and the stuff with the juvenile justice sector here, like my goal is to transform the juvenile justice system in South Carolina, period. That's my focus every day. And so on the days where like it's frustrating and I'm on week 3 of not being able to do my program after going for multiple weeks out there, now I have to wait and all these things, I'm frustrated and build. And it's just like, but I'm trying to transform this system.
Right.
So I mean, it's not about like, oh, my next step of having this program run and this data had and all this other stuff. Like that stuff doesn't matter right now.
Well, it reminds me of, and I mean, you know it. You know where I'm going to kick it. I'm going to kick it back to The Alchemist.
Of course.
It talks about when he's traveling through the desert, right? And he says they know where they're headed towards the pyramids, right? But some days the sand was too rocky, so the animals couldn't carry the load. They had to take the load off the animals, maybe walk
Right.
around it. So wherever the journey took them throughout the day, at the beginning of the day, they're following this star. So they knew where they were going, right? So they're following this star at the start of their day. Wherever their day took them, up, down, around, in circles, at the end of their day, they still looked up. This is where I'm going. So you know where you're going, but it might be a rocky path that day. It might be smooth sand that, was tough to cross and things like that. So like the journey is ever winding. It's always winding, crooked. That's what we talk about.
Right.
But I think you have to know where you're going. As long as you know where you're going, you'll get there. It might not be in the time that you think that you should get there. I mean, it was one little line in the thing. He was like, when he gets to Africa, he's like, I could be at the pyramid in a couple of days. Little did he know that was going to be years. You know what I'm saying? So like the whole idea is like you think that the distance might not be that far, but the path to get there.
It's the line. Keep
Exactly.
one foot in the future and the other in the living room.
Exactly.
That John Bellion
Like,
used. Like it's just like
Got to be moving.
you got to know where it is, right? We've talked about
know
it,
where you're going.
Begin with the end in mind. We've talked about stuff like that before and things like that. But like that's why the vision is so clear. That's why these reminders, these pillars, these things, these creeds, these affirmations, whatever it is that keeps you going. That's why it's so important, because if you're not giving yourself those things to move forward, to dive deeply into, then like you're going to lose sight of the vision that you set for yourself. You're not going to believe that you can even attain that vision, because your focus is going to be now on your feet instead of I'm looking there and I'm moving wherever it is that I gotta go.
Right. And I think it's a combination of looking down and remind yourself, hey, it's just one more step, but this is where I'm going.
Head
It's
on a swivel, kid.
It's that long-term
No doubt.
vision with short-term actions.
Absolutely. Well, the action's the critical part in all of it. I mean, I think when I flipped the Alchemist open earlier, the first thing that I saw that was highlighted, there's only one way to learn. It's through action. So the learning process, the growing process, all the things that are important is with the action, but like the actions are the steps.
Right. Well, I mean, it's even what
Towards
you
the
even,
vision.
Our buddy Kevin 1100 tweeted out something and basically said, like, even when your wheels are spinning, like basically like, keep your foot on the gas. You feel like you might not be moving forward, but you're at least like you're pushing forward. You're trying to get there. So like that whole idea of like, okay, like you might feel like you're not going anywhere, but you're still trying to go somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's constantly forward leaning, is the posture that I desire for my life.
Right. And if
I desire it to be in a position where I'm leaning forward, which means for me that I'm constantly learning, that I'm constantly keeping my mouth shut when I don't know what I'm talking about. That's like one of my biggest goals that I'm trying to do is like, I don't have to contribute anything to these things that I don't know about.
I can just listen.
It's all good. Yeah, it's awkward. We're all sitting here silent. It's okay.
Yeah.
I normally am the type of person that just wants to feel the thing. And normally what that does is make me talk just in circles about something that I really don't know very much about. But like those things are important, right? To keep your focus and keep the actions and the things in line is we've said it before, right? You know where you're going, know what you're trying to step, and the things that you desire for yourself, only things that you can control. And I get those are all things that we talked about in the previous season, but like they're foundational for us. I mean, and for me, in the year that is now elapsed since we filmed season 1, I completed a life goal of mine. I've relaunched the nonprofit. I've resumed programs and things like I've started to actually live out the stuff that I had been saying for years that I wanted to friggin' do, and it's the best life that I could ever ask for myself.
Man, I feel you
right
on
now.
that. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there aren't days where I maybe have some worries or fears or things. I don't let those things drive me anymore. What drives me is the fact that like I'm at peace with where I'm at right now in my life, and that's the most freeing thing I've ever experienced.
Sure.
And so I'm choosing the peace. I'm choosing the joy right now for me. And I'm doing the things that consume me. I'm doing the things that give me energy, and that for me, I want to make an impact. I want to make a change. And if I'm going to be here in Columbia, I'm going to impact my hometown. Then I found the thing that I'm sinking my teeth into and I'm doing. So each and every day, I've got to continue down that path. I got to continue to do it.